الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. We continue inshallah ta'ala with the kitab al al-Murbi, and we stopped at باب مسح الخفين, the chapter of مسح الخفين, page 128. باب مسح الخفين وغيرهما من الحوائل. باب مسح الخفين وغيرهما من الحوائل. And this is after what's mentioned about صفة الوضوء, the way to make wudu. Then after that, part of the wudu, as we know, is غسل الرجلين, and al-masih is wiping. So that's why it comes right after that. When it comes to مسح الخفين and the rulings of it and the conditions for it and so on. And again, the concern here is to go through the matn of Zad and al-Rawd al-Murbi' word by word, regardless of the many masail and the differences of opinions and all types of questions that might be there. This is secondary, but the most important thing is that we're going through the book and the masail as it's described, to understand it, to picture it, and to get the proper understanding of what's being mentioned, inshallah. So he says, باب مسح الخفين وغيرهما من الحوائل. مسح is wiping. Al-Khuffain is the dual tense or the muthanna of al-Khuf. And al-Khuf is, instead of saying shoes and what is meant by shoes, and people might have different perceptions of it, is anything that covers the foot up to the beginning of the shin. This is what al-Khuf is. So if the heels are shown, if the ankles are shown, that's not considered to be khuf. Right? So al-khuf, this is what al-khuf is. And many of these things describes what was at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, not something that is related to the culture or so, just to take from this the ruling, because as we will see, when something is rukhsa, and a rukhsa is a ease or break, then we have to make very strict quyud, or the conditions for it, or the restrictions according to the what is mentioned about it. We cannot be at ease or to make it the way we like. So, but describing what was at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, then people can wear whatever they want to wear, and they can name it whatever they name it. It doesn't matter as long as it fulfills these conditions. So this is what al-khuf means. Whether it's from leather or other than leather, this is something also that is going to be mentioned. But it's about covering the foot, something that covers the foot, and all the way to above the ankles, which is basically what is to be washed in the wudu. What to be washed in the wudu. وَغَيْرِهِمَا مِنَ الْحَوَائِل. And al-hawa'il is the plural of ha'il. And al-ha'il is a barrier. So that means the like of it. So that's why they mentioned the hawa'il. Whether it's with regards to the foot, because there are other things that's going to be mentioned that covers the foot, or al-hawa'il like al-imama with its conditions, al-khimar for the women, al-jabira what is also going to be mentioned, the rulings of it, the cast if someone is wounded. So this is all hawa'il, things that prevents the water from reaching the organ that's supposed to be washed. So what's the ruling of it? This is what's going to be mentioned here in the chapter, inshallah. So he says, وَهُوَ رُخْصَةٌ. Every word is counts, of course. So here, this is the hukm, according to the madhab, when it comes to al-mash al-khuffayn. Rukhsa. What is the rukhsa? We have something called rukhsa, and we have something called azima. These are the two opposite things, and it's in usul fiqh defined. When you have a ruling that is based on clear evidences, this is what the rulings are, and this is what a person is commanded to do. Al-rukhsa is when there's an exception, which is a break, an ease, even though the dalil is not according to the rukhsa. The dalil is opposite to the rukhsa. But there's another dalil, mu'arid, opposes the original dalil that makes it a rukhsa. So, and a very easy example to this is that for someone to pray sitting because of sickness. Praying standing for the fard salah is a rukn, is a pillar of the salah. Whoever prays sitting in salatul fard and he is able to stand, his salah is not valid. This is a pillar of the salah. But if someone is sick and he's not able to stand, or it's going to be harmful for him to stand, as it's going to be mentioned in the book, in the chapter of al-Rukhas, then he has a rukhsa. He has an excuse. So he would sit, right? So the evidence is to stand, but the exception is to sit because there is something opposes, an evidence that opposes the norm of the rulings here. So, and this is part of the deen, and the Prophet ﷺ, he said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ أَن تُؤْتَ رُخَصُ كَمَا يُحِبُّ أَن تُؤْتَ عَزَائِمُ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala love for the people to take the rukhas. If the rukhsa applies for the person, then to take it, to take the ease. Someone is sick, don't kill yourself, take the rukhsa. And the same way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala love al-azima, which is the to be doing the things upon determination, that means this is the norm. So without going into so much details, مسح al-khafayn, according to what's mentioned here, is rukhsa, because the norm is that a person would wash instead of wiping. But then a person would say that means rukhsa, that means it's better to take off the khuf and to wash. No, he says وَأَفْضَلُ مِنْ غَسْلٍ, أفضل من غسل. So it's better than washing. And the Prophet, and the evidence of that is that the Prophet ﷺ, if he have the khuf, he would wipe over the khuf. If he doesn't have it, he would wash. So, and that's why all of the different examples we mentioned. طيب اتفضل. اتفضل. This is the details because we're going through it one step after the other. But in general, it includes the shoes that is high, not any shoes. As it has to cover the place where the foot is washed. يعني boots, half a boot. That means that the ankles is covered, so it goes up. Yes, has to cover the ankle, and also the socks with conditions. يعني بشروط معينة it's going to be. طيب. كل هذا سيذكر. It's all في الباب إن شاء الله. الله يبارك فيك. And this is good inshallah, because when it comes to al-masah al-khuffayn, there's all kinds of situations here and differences of opinions and things like this. So we'll go inshallah slowly inshallah. And we won't be able to finish the entire chapter inshallah tonight, but we'll take it one step at the other inshallah. So وهو رخصة وأفضل من غسل. So it's better than الغسل, better than washing. ويرفع الحدث. Another ruling, يرفع الحدث. Wiping over the خفين يرفع الحدث. Why يرفع الحدث is mentioned here? Because it's not like the tayammum or the opinion whether it's يبيح, because once you see يرفع الحدث, it's either يرفع الحدث or what's the other statement that is always mentioned? يبيح. إما رافع أو مبيح. Either it lifts the state of al-hadath, that means a person is now in state of tahara, he was in state of impurity, now he's in state of tahara, or it just permits the act of ibadah and makes a big difference in the outcome of things. So al-masah al-khufayn yarfa al-hadath, makes the person in state of wudu, in state of tahara. So, and it's afdal min ghasl. The fourth one here, ولا يسن أن يلبس ليمسح. ولا يسن, it's not recommended that a person would يلبس what? A person would wear the khuf to wipe. So don't wear the khuf to wipe over it. Don't take it off to wash. That means to be at ease. And this is the way the Prophet ﷺ, السنة عدم التكلف في ذلك. But if someone wear the khuf just to wipe over it, the wiping is valid, the wudu is valid, as long as the conditions are met. But ولا يسن. So it's not something that is recommended for a person to intentionally, he just want to put it on so that he can wipe. So to be at the norm or the ease. ولا يسن أن يلبس ليمسح. Now in the Z, the first thing mentioned, يجوز يوما وليلة. يجوز يوما وليلة. Here يجوز, that means it's permissible. يوما وليلة, one day and one night, which is once يوما وليلة is mentioned in the fiqh like this, it refers to the 24 hours, according to what we understand. So 24 hours basically. From the time till the same time comes the next day. This is what يوما وليلة means. But who's permissible for him to wipe يوما وليلة? لمقيم ومسافر لا يباح له القصر. This is only for a مقيم. المقيم is the resident from الإقامة, opposite to المسافر. So what's the opposite of مسافر? مقيم. مسافر, so مقيم is يوما وليلة, 24 hours a day and a night. And مسافر لا يباح له القصر, also 1 day and 1 night, which is 24 hours. To a traveler, that is not permissible for him to make qasr. Al-qasr is to shorten the salah. Is there a musafir that is not permissible for him to make qasr? One of the very obvious one, which is in the madhab clear, musafir safar al-ma'asiyah. The one that travels to commit a sin, no qasr for him. Right? So someone not traveling, and while traveling he committed a sin, that's different. So someone is going to visit his parents. It's a good cause. But while he was traveling, he was smoking or he was backbiting and things like this. Does that person makes the salah qasr and so on? Yes, he makes the qasr. But someone is traveling to punch someone in the face, right? He's just going there to do that, right? So it's the traveling itself is haram, or he's going to, whatever sin that he's traveling to. That person is not permissible for him to pray the dhuhr 2 rak'ah and the asr 2 rak'ah. He has to pray 4 and 4 and things like this. Why? Because this is rukhsa, and the rukhsa is not to be given for someone that is would permit the rukhsa when he's going there for a sin. And this is again ومسافر لا يباح له القصر. So يوما وليلة لمقيم ومسافر لا يباح له القصر. ولمسافر إن متن يجوز يوما وليلة ولمسافر ثلاثة بلياليها. And for the مسافر 3 days بلياليها with its nights. That means 24 times 3. ولمسافر, in the sharh he says ولمسافر سفرا يبيح القصر, to make it clear from the previous one. سفرا يبيح القصر, that is permissible for him to make قصر. ثلاثة أيام بلياليها, 3 days by their nights. As you see here, since we're memorizing زاد المستقنع, so you say يجوز يوما وليلة ولمسافر ثلاثة بلياليها, right, with a tanween. But since الروض is the sharh مزج here between the matn and the sharh, so you say ولمسافر سفرا يبيح القصر ثلاثة أيام, because there's مضاف إليه here, so you take away the tanween. So that's why it has only fatha there. But if you when you're memorizing it, ثلاثة بلياليها. He says لحديث علي يرفع. The evidence is the hadith of Ali radiallahu an, يرفع. He is this is the present tense, making the رفع of the hadith. That means the Prophet attributing that to the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام. He said, means the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام, he said للمسافر ثلاثة أيام ولياليهن وللمقيم يوما وليلة. To the musafir 3 days with their nights, and وللمقيم يوما وليلة, and for the resident one يوما وليلة. So this is part of the hadith where the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام, the hadith says that أمرنا النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أو أمرنا, the narrations, we have been commanded by the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام أن نمسح على الخفين إذا أدخلناهما على طهر, that he commanded us to wipe over the khuf if we put them in state of tahara, in state of purity. ثلاثا إذا سافرنا ويوما وليلة إذا أقمنا, until the end. So this is للمسافر ثلاثة أيام ولياليهن وللمقيم يوما وليلة. The hadith رواه مسلم. ويخلع عند انقضاء المدة. ويخلع, and inshallah whatever questions you have, you'll have it here inshallah, but just take its place. So the مقيم يوما وليلة, المسافر 3 أيام بلياليهن. ويخلع عند انقضاء المدة. انقضاء المدة, المدة is the time. انقضاء, the end. يخلع, take off. So he takes off the khuf after the time ended. So after the day and night for the muqim, then he has to take off his khuf. After the 3 days for the musafir, he take off the khuf. That means the wudu is not there anymore. This is what's upon the madhab, and this is, yes, some of these matters have differences of opinions. So because the rukhsa here was as the hadith, day and night and 3 days and 3 nights. So the time is ended. That means it's not there anymore. The person was not doing the wudu, he was wiping. So that ruling ended by the time. And the fatwa of the ulama and other riwayah also, because if you're taking the opinion that it doesn't break the wudu at the end of the time, that's fine. You can continue to do that, but this is where the madhab is. This is different than what's needs to be studied, inshallah. Then you can apply that, of course, because this is what is, without going to the difference of opinions. ويخلع عند انقضاء المدة فإن خاف. So if he feared أو تضرر رفيقه بانتظاره. That means the مدة انقضت المدة. The مدة, the time is finished. But then he feared something. He's traveling, so he's afraid that if he takes his khuf and he makes wudu, he will miss his flight, for example. Or harm will afflict him. أو تضرر رفيقه بانتظاره. رفيقه, his companion, تضرر, was harmed بانتظاره, by waiting for him. We're going to have to wait for you now, and it's going to be, he has to go find water and he has to wash like this. So what should he do so that the harm is to be pushed away? Tayammum. The ruling for him in this case is to make tayammum. Tayammum from the beginning to the end? No. If he's able to make wudu, then to keep his khuf and to make tayammum for it. To make tayammum after he makes the wudu. And why? Because it's not something to be wiped over, because the time is finished. This is basically what that means. فَإِن مَسَحَ وَصَلَّى. If the time finished and he wiped, still he wiped over his khuf and prayed, أعاد. He will have to repeat the salah. And this is actually with the other opinion, and this is on the side, not going through the book, the ones that says that your wudu is not broken after the time is finished. No one said that you can wipe over it again. Right? Wiping is not permitted, it's done. If a person wipes over the khuf after the time finished, the wudu is not valid and the salah is not valid. He has to repeat the salah. But the issue that some of the ulama that I mentioned, if the time ended and he still did not break his wudu, he can still make salah. He did not break the wudu that he wiped over the socks in. That wudu is not broken. So this is the mas'ala here. Does the wudu breaks or not after the end of the time? So if the opinion is that the wudu doesn't break, which is Sheikh Santami and others, they took this, and also riwayah here in the madhab, that's fine. But if he breaks his wudu and then he wipes again, the wiping is not valid. Even if the wudu is valid and he repeated his wudu and he wiped over the socks, the wiping is not valid. So wudu is not valid. But he would pray with the previous wudu. فإن مسح وصلى أعد. If he wiped and he made salah, أعد. Then he says ومن حدث بعد لبس. So if we read يجوز يوما وليلة ولمسافر ثلاثة بلياليها ومن حدث بعد لبس. What does that mean? وابتداء المدة. This is referring to the beginning of the time. When is you start counting the day and night? When do you start counting the 3 days? من حدث بعد لبس. From the time of the hadath. Al-hadath is breaking the wudu. From the breaking of the wudu, بعد لبس, after wearing it. Right? Because this is also a difference of opinion whether the time starts from al-hadath or al-masih. So some said it's the masih. And this is where many of the fatwa of the ulama are upon. Al-masih, not al-hadath. But take this here from al-hadath. For example, if someone made tahara kamila, made the full wudu, and then he put his socks on, when does he count the day and night for the muqim? He did not make hadath. Once he breaks his wudu. If he went to sleep, so when he went to sleep. So that's the beginning of the counting, because now he slept. So this is what is meant. وابتداء المدة من حدث بعد لبس. ومن حدث بعد لبس على طاهر. ومن حدث بعد لبس على طاهر. Now these are the conditions for the khuf to be valid for a person to wipe over it. So he says على طاهر. on something that is pure. But before that, again, for ومن حدث بعد لبس, the timing from the hadath, and also there is another riwayah from Imam Ahmad that it's from the time of the masih, time, not the hadath. So here على طاهر, on pure, so it has to be pure. The opposite of the pure is the najis. That means طاهر العين. The Sharh says على طاهر العين. That means the specific socks or shoes has to be طاهر, pure. فلا يمسح على نجس. He does not wipe over najis. It is not permissible to wipe over najis, impure. ولو في ضرور. Even if it's ضرور, even if it's by necessity. He has no other choice but to wipe over it. And the darura can be something like, someone in extreme cold weather, that if he takes his socks off, he thinks most likely that he would have frost bites, something like this. Then he is to be told, don't take your socks off. But there's najasa on it. Don't take your socks off, because this is darura, but you cannot wipe over it. So what does he do then? وَيَتَيَمَّمُ مَعَهَا لِمَسْتُورٍ. So if it's a darura, يَتَيَمَّمُ مَعَهَا. He would make tayammum for it. He makes the normal wudu. Right? Of course, if it's extremely cold, there's no even wudu. He can make tayammum from the very beginning. But the water is valid for him to make wudu. But he cannot take whatever he has on his foot, because it's a darura, a matter of harm will afflict him. This is what darura means. Not that it's inconvenient or whatever. No, harm will happen. Then in that case, يَتَيَمَّمُ مَعَهَا. He would make the wudu, and then when it comes to the foot, makes tayammum for it. لِمَسْتُورٍ. Al-mastur is what's hidden, which is his foot, and that's what the mastur is. So this is what the najis is not to wipe over the najis, the impure. This is not permissible, period. And if he cannot take it off, then is to make tayammum. Then he says على طاهر مباح. In the mat على طاهر مباح. So the second condition, it has to be مباح. مباح, that means it's permissible. فلا يجوز المسح على مغصوب. As it's mentioned for the water before, it is not permissible to wipe over مغصوب. Shoes that has been stolen, khuf stolen, it is not permissible to wipe over it. ولا حرير لرجل, a man wearing socks from silk. It's haram for a man to wear silk, so it's haram to wipe over it because it's not mubah. لأن لبسه معصية, because wearing it is معصية, is haram. فلا تستباح به الرخصة. So this is the qaida here. The principle is the rukhsa. It is not valid for someone that is committing a sin. فلا تستباح from المباح. You don't seek permissibility of the rukhsa because he's wearing it, or the thing that a person wipe over is haram. So this is mubah. The next condition in page 129, ساتر للمفروض. ساتر للمفروض. ساتر, that's like mastur, meaning covering, concealing. للمفروض, to what is obligated to wash. Because the ruling here, masah, wiping, in which it's originally to be washed, but it has to cover what's supposed to be washed, which is all the way to the end of the ankles, when the saq or the shin meets al-ka'bayn, as mentioned in صفة الوضوء. So ساتر للمفروض. What is al-mafrood? What we talked about before, which is washing the foot to al-ka'bayn. In the sharh he says, وَلَوْ بِشَدِّهِ, even if a person has to, بِشَدِّهِ, الشد is to pull it. So the only way for it to cover the mafrood, by pulling it. This is when it comes to as-satr, because next it's going to be يثبت بنفسه. There's two different things here, but take this first, inshallah. Now the mafrood has to be covered, has to be concealed. Either you put the khuf and the foot goes in there and it covers the mafrood, or the khuf you have to pull it up and it stays up, but you have to bishaddihi. This is you have to do something to it. Like the socks even. When you put the socks, you have to put it up. If you leave it, it might stay down. But it has to continue to stay, of course. It should not expose the fard. أو شرجه. شرجه, الشرج is to tie it. To tie whatever the khuf is. But it's here, الشرج is what applies to it is the shoes, what has lace. So you have boots, for example, the lace, if you open it and you're not wearing any socks underneath, it exposes your foot. So the only way to cover your foot that that you can wipe over it is that you have to tie your shoelace. So this is basically what sharjihi means. Because he says كالزربول الذي له ساق وعرى يدخل بعضها في بعض. Like الزربول. Anybody knows what الزربول? No one knows today what الزربول is. But this is something that they used to wear in the past. But he described it so that we have the like of it. الزربول is الذي له ساق. It has ساق. ساق, that means it has a shin to it. So it's boots. Right? وعرى. العرى is what you call it in English? The circle that you put the lace in the shoes. Can someone, is it not? You know what I'm talking about? So you have boots and the lace, right? The string goes into that ring. What's the name of that ring? This is the ura, right? So it's a khuf that has ura, has a saq, so it's tall, goes above the foot, so it's like boots, and has ura. يدخل بعضها في بعض. يدخل بعضها في بعض. It goes into one another. So it's like this, then you have to make it covers the udw, covers the mafrood by tying it together. So this is what az-zurbul is. So, which is basically like the boots now. فلا يمسح, so this is permissible because originally when you put it on, it exposes the foot. But you would do something. That's why when you close it, when you tie it, then it covers it. So this is what he meant by ولو بشده أو شرجه. كالزربول الذي له ساق وعرى يدخل بعضها في بعض. Clear? Then he says فلا يمسح ما لا يستر محل الفرض لقصره. Now after mentioning this, then it's not permissible to wipe فلا يمسح ما لا يستر, what does not cover, what does not conceal محل الفرض, the place of the fard. لقصره, because it's short. So if it's short, like the short socks, for example, or the shoes, the normal shoes that is not boots, then you don't wipe over it because it doesn't cover the entire part that is supposed to be washed, which is above the ankle. أو سعته, or it's huge. A person puts his, he wears 7 and he put his foot in a 14 size shoes. Can he wipe over it? First of all, it won't apply for the next conditions, but also, even if it's boots, but it's not covering because it's probably going to show his foot. We're not talking about socks here. We're talking about something that is too big that it would show the foot. أو صفائه. صفائه, الصفاء is the purity, but here refers to being transparent. That means it's very transparent, it shows the foot. So this is not permissible. أو صفائه. أو خرق, and by the way, as it's going to come, in the madhab, for the jawrab, for the socks, it has to be safiq, has to be thick one. So the light one is not permissible. The see-through is not permissible. Right? So, but this is, again, it's a difference of opinion. But أو صفائه أو خرق فيه وإن صغر. Another thing in the madhab, صحيح in the madhab, is any kharq, any tear in the socks does not make it valid. وإن صغر. نخليها في الآخر ولا دلوقتي؟ أو خرق فيه. لو if the socks has خرق, الخرق is it's torn. وإن صغر, even if it's small. حتى موضع الخرز, even if it's a space for الخرز. Al-Kharaz is the small, what's Al-Kharaz in English? The things that you put in the beads, for example. You know, when people have beads, this is how big it is. These kharaz, like this. So that means it just has, it doesn't have to be that size. But just give it an example that any kharq, any torn thing in the khuf, it invalidates the masih. Right? And there is the other narration that the kharq is permissible, and the statement of Al-Hasan al-Basri when he said that the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, their socks or their khuf would never be all, mashallah, perfect without khuruqat in it, without being torn. But this is the issue of الخرق أو خرق فيه وإن صغر حتى موضع الخرز فإن انضم ولم يبدو منه شيء جاز المسح عليه. So if you have خرق, if you have a hole here and a hole there, but فإن انضم, if you bring it together, then ولم يبدو منه شيء, nothing appears from it, meaning from the foot, جاز المسح عليه, it's permissible to wipe over it. So if there's holes, but then when you put it together, you covered it basically and it stay covered, then it's okay to wipe over it. And by the way, just to understand, again, this is a good example of having the understanding of where the ulama come from, so that nobody would call someone mubtadi' or anything in matters of fiqh, of course. And it's not that they're opposing the clear evidences, but it's a matter of leniency in the differences of opinions. It's how they even look at the subject from the very beginning. This is rukhsa, that means you have to go exactly by what the conditions of the rukhsa. You cannot make any ease because it's already an ease. Versus those who said that it's rukhsa. So what's meant by the rukhsa is the ease. So that means the matter can be, as long as it applies and does not go against the evidences, the matter should be easy, whether it's transparent, light. Where's the evidence that this is not permissible, or the holes or not having holes? And the other ones, they say, no, it's a rukhsa, so we have to abide by what only is mentioned at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. So this is basically what it says. But in our level here, we're making sure that every mas'ala is known, and you even separated, this is a mas'ala, this is a mas'ala. And then if you're following the contemporary scholars, mashallah, perfect. There's no harm in this whatsoever. But just to understand the mas'ala. So ساتر للمفروض, with all of what's mentioned in the sharh. The next condition, يثبت بنفسه. That al-khuf يثبت بنفسه. الثبات is when something is steady, stays in its place by itself, not by something else. That means it does not expose the place that's supposed to be washed if you walk. You put socks on and it's loose, then it shows the ankles because it falls down. Then it's not permissible to wipe over it. Same thing with shoes and so on. يثبت بنفسه, by itself. فإن لم يثبت إلا بشده, if the only way for it to stay in its place by pulling it, the same word as mentioned, بشده لم يجوز المسح عليه. It is not permissible to wipe over it. And this is different than the previous one. The previous one, الشد, was with regards to الستر, covering. Covering is one thing. الثبات is something else. You see the difference? So if you pull it to cover, that's okay. But if you pull it to stay in place, then it's not okay. Right? For it to, that means if he does not make shad, what happens? It falls. So that makes it not permissible to wipe over this one. لم يجوز المسح عليه. وإن ثبت بنعلين. Now in the sharh, making more examples. وإن ثبت بنعلين. If what's on the foot, ثبت, stays, but with two na'l. And the na'l is the one that is not covering. Originally, the na'l refers to the slippers or the thing that is not covering the ankles. But also the khuf, if it's covered by two things, like for example, the khuf itself is high and covers everything. But for him to keep it in place, he put a small socks on top of it. Right? That small one would not cover mahil al-fard, but he puts it to keep the other one intact, in place. وإن ثبت بنعلين مسح إلى خلعهما ما دامت مدته. Then if he puts this مسح, he would wipe, no problem. Permissible to wipe إلى خلعهما, till he take off the two نعل. If he takes them off, then it goes back to the original ruling where it's not supposed to be wiped. ما دامت مدته, as long as his مدة, if he's a مقيم يوما وليلة, ولا يجوز المسح على ما يسقط, and it's not permissible to make مسح on what falls. So what falls is not permissible to wipe over it. But if you wear something on top of it, even if it doesn't cover the whole thing, then you can wipe over as long as it's there. So it's all about making the thubut, making it in place. He says, من خف يثبت بنفسه من خف, so it's خف. He says here بيان لطاهر من خف, بيان لطاهر, that means it makes it clear what is طاهر. أي يجوز المسح على خف يمكن متابعة المشي فيه عرفا. So what is meant by خف here, that it's خف. Means it's so when you go back to طاهر على طاهر, and then it says من خف, there has to be خف. أي يجوز المسح على خف يمكن, it's permissible to wipe over the خف, يمكن متابعة المشي فيه عرفا, that it's feasible for a person to walk. And متابعة المشي, that means he walk not one step, he keeps on walking. متابعة المشي, that means the مشي or walking continuous. فيه, in it, عرفا. عرفا means according to the norm. So that means if he's not able to walk, if he walks, so again here you have something ساتر and يثبت بنفسي, but then once you walk it falls apart, right? Then it's not a خف to wipe over. Something that you can walk with and you go back and forth. Does it have to be walking outside? No, if you walk with it in your house, that means it's valid to wipe over it. Something that it does not fall if you walk. This is what يجوز المسح على خف يمكن متابعة المشي فيه عرفا. And this is where, as you know, whether some people they took from this, which I'm just saying that on the side again, because of the issues of differences of opinions, does that mean if you pour water on it and it becomes what? Like this is the issue of the cloth socks. You know, if we pour water on it and it becomes something as if you're not wearing anything, versus that if you pour water on it, it does not affect it. So these types of things also, as some said, there's no evidence of that. And that does not make it, is not, you know, a person cannot walk in it with it urfan. But according to the madhab al-Hanabila, that as long as it doesn't matter, even if it gets wet, it's valid. Madhab al-Shafi'iyya, for example, that even though they don't make sharta that it's muna'al, you know, if it's cloth, but it has na'al underneath, then it's okay. Or if it doesn't, but if you pour water on it, it does not affect the foot. But all of these types of things is there. But here, as long as it's a person can walk in it. Then قال الإمام أحمد ليس في قلبي من المسح شيء. I have nothing in my heart towards المسح. No unease in it whatsoever. And why this is mentioned? Because the subject of al-masih, before we continue what he mentioned, was not known to some in the early generations of Islam, because the hadith didn't reach them. That's all. So that's why he says ليس في قلبي من المسح شيء فيه 40 حديثا عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Has 40 hadith from the Messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم, and the hadith of al-masih al-khuffayn mutawatir. Whoever denies it takes him outside the fold of Islam, meaning the hadith is mutawatir. No one can deny it. What is meant by some of the early generations and did not hear it then, right? But it's mutawatir, that means it's been reported from many. Some said 80, some said 50 from the companions radiallahu anhum. And this is one of the things where they say al-ashara al-mubasharun bil-jannah. All of them narrated the hadith of al-khuffayn. So it's no doubt about it whatsoever. And even the ulama, they would include it in the books of al-aqidah, because this is what differed. One of the things that makes the people of Ahlul Sunnah different than al-Rafidah, for example. Rafidah, they don't wipe over their khuf or socks or anything. So it makes them, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it easy for one of the things to be clear, that is the Rafida is different in. So ليس في قلبي من المسح شيء فيه 40 حديثا عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. So going back to the من خف وجورب صفيق. So الخف is mentioned and جورب. الجورب, this is where the socks comes in place. But then he says صفيق. صفيق, that means thick. وهو ما يلبس في الرجل على هيئة الخف من غير الجلد. What is the جورب? What is to be يلبس, passive tense, what a person would wear في الرجل, in the foot, على هيئة الخف. The same look, the same هيئة, the same manner of الخف. That means it covers what the خف would cover, which is the one that goes high above the ankles, which is like the الجورب, the socks. من غير الجلد, from other than the leather. So this is what al-jawrab is. And the evidence of that لأنه صلى الله عليه وسلم مسح على الجوربين والنعلين. Because the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام, he wiped over the جوربين and the نعلين, both. رواه أحمد وغيره صححه الترمذي. And الجوربين cannot be the same as النعلين, because it does not, in the Arabic language, if you have waw, it does not mean that if for those who described it as al-jawrabayn being the same as the na'layn, no. This is something and this is something else. So jawrabayn here is other than the leather. And the na'layn refers to the khuffa, by the way. So even if the word the na'l is mentioned, it has to cover the mahall al-fard. Has to, this is agreed upon, there's no differences of opinion in this whatsoever. So it has to cover mahall al-fard. He says, وصححه الترمذي. And this has been reported from 9 of the companions رضي الله عنهم, مسح على الجوربين والنعلين. But الجوربين, whether it's صفيق or not صفيق, this is an issue. Thick versus light. So, and both, if you pour water on it, it will reach the foot, of course. So, but one is very light. The very light one that see through, a person definitely should stay away from this. But the light socks that doesn't see through, as the Mashaykh, even Sheikh al-Santamiyah, Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen, the like of this, they said it's permissible. Sheikh Ibn Baz rahimahullah used to say it has to be thick. So to be safe, do not wipe over the very light one. So there is light one and there is see-through. The very light one, very light, that you feel when you're wiping, you feel your foot when you're wiping. To stay away from that. But the normal cotton socks, this is what, according to this, is valid. But again, this is a matter that a person, if he's follow someone that he trusts his knowledge and his religion, mashallah, the matter is easy, inshallah. So going back to the matter, يثبت بنفسه من خف وجورب صفيق ونحوهما, and the like of them. What is the like of them? أي نحو الخف والجورب. The like of الخف والجورب. الخف is the one that shoes but goes up above the ankle. والجورب is other than الجلد, other than the leather. He says كالجرموق. كالجرموق. Kaf is the like of. So what here we have الجرموق ويسمى, and its name al-muq. So al-jurmuq is called al-muq. وهو, what is al-jurmuq? خف قصير. It's خف but it's short. فيصح المسح عليه. So it's permissible to wipe over it لفعله صلى الله عليه وسلم, because the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام, he wiped over it. So this is al-jurmuq. But the jurmuq, they would wear it, and I think there's some of the things here, Wallahu A'lam, gives an example to it. You know these funny things that they put when it's cold? Funny socks, that are, what they call it? Not socks, just covers when you wear it at home, for example. You know, thick. It's the jurmuq specifically is mentioned when to warm the foot. It's not socks. It's like slippers, but it's like a sock. So it goes on like this, and it's thick. to warm the foot, and you have a sock, you have socks underneath. So you have socks, and you wear something like this on top of it, fluffy or thick, so that it gives you warmth to your foot. This is basically what al-muq, or the like of the muq. So this is جورب أو خف قصير فيصح المسح عليه. Why? Because it covers the place of al-fard, right? And this is no doubt about this. It has to cover the fard, whether it goes up or shorter than the خف. فيصح المسح عليه لفعله صلى الله عليه وسلم، رواه أحمد وغيره. But it's mainly they would wear it for the cold weather. But it covers the محل الفرد. It goes up. So this is الجرموك. And anything, that's why ونحوهما, anything that would fit, if people have in different cultures in different ways, as long as it covers محل الفرد and it fulfills these conditions. This is the modern description of it. But الجرموك in the past, في أيام زمان يعني, it used to be with regards to something that warms the foot. They would wear it to warm. Yeah. No. No, it's like the socks, and that's why it says ونحوهما أي نحو الخف والجورب كالجرموق، ويسمى الموق وهو خف قصير فيصح المسح عليه لفعله صلى الله عليه وسلم، يقول رواه أحمد وغيره. We can stop here inshallah ta'ala, because then next is going to talk about the imamah, and it goes back again to some of the rulings of al-khuffayn. So if we go back again, we read just the zad. He says يجوز يوما وليلة ولمسافر ثلاثة بلياليها ومن حدث بعد لبس على طاهر مباح ساتر للمفروض يثبت بنفسه من خف وجورب صفيق ونحوهما, and the like of them. So we have the attendance code, inshallah, any combination or all of the following terms: رخصة, مسح, خفين. And again, the words that we were supposed to hopefully having some words every time, so that we speak less in English, inshallah. May Allah make it easy. تكون خير. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.